Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014. I am Jennifer Richardson with the details. The Christian community here is expressing concerns that Vincentians are straying away from the real meaning of Easter. On the Hits Talk radio program on Sunday, Administrator of the Cathedral of the Assumption and Vice President of the Christian Council, Monsignor Michael Stewart, said Easter represents a central dimension of the Christian faith and highlighted a number of life signs during this time of year, which he said speaks to rebirth.
In Easter, we focus on the redemptive act of God in Christ Jesus. Namely, Christ died for us. He died the death of the cross and he rose. And it is in this death and resurrection of Christ that we have been baptized, that we also anchor our hope that death would always give way to life in Christ Jesus. Of course, this is not without its cultural overtones, in the sense that if we are familiar with what happens during spring and we experience some signs in these islands, Easter and spring is a time of rebirth, of regeneration, of new life.
Monsignor Stewart said, in his view, not many persons are influenced directly by the Christian story and values.
I mean, we'd say generally St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a Christian nation, and therefore Christian values are infused in the society, and therefore those Christian values would necessarily affect and influence our behavior. We are not seeing that. That's what we're saying. We are lamenting the fact that somehow we have degenerated into something else. And perhaps, a little later, maybe we can talk somewhat about maybe some kind of descent, really, into hedonism, in the pursuit of pleasure above everything else.
Meanwhile, a member of the Christian Council, Ronnie Daniel, also expressed concerns as to the new direction Christian celebrations have been heading. He said decades gone by, celebrations such as Christmas and Easter were a lot more respected.
The church then represented a very prominent place in society, in our culture, and if for want of a better word, some people might say impose, but the church use its power, so to speak, to ensure that Easter, Christmas, all these important and significant celebrations, religious celebrations, Christian celebrations, were at the core of a family life. And if you extend it to the church schools, then the churches manage their own schools, so that the question of the celebration of Easter and Christmas and so on didn't arise, because the church then had a prominent place in society and ensured through its teachings, through its institutions, that the society was so ordered that Easter becomes a very important celebration, and there was no deviation.
Youths are being encouraged to speak out if they are being abused. Over the next 3 days, the National Commission on Crime Prevention, the NWCP, will seek to enforce this through a child abuse awareness program under the theme Hear the Children. The first activity in the form of a symposium will be held tomorrow at the Methodist Church Hall with author life development coach Janetta McSwain. At a news briefing today, McSwain said the symposium is to bring to light the abuse facing children today, admitting that she too was a victim of child abuse, but rose above it to become a positive person in society.
I am so passionate about saving the lives of our young kids, our young girls, our young women, as well as our young boys. I myself was a victim of crime, of abuse, self-destruction, failure, high school dropout, baby mama, baby daddy, you name it, I was that victim. One thing I wanted to talk about while I'm here My passion is to empower definitely our youth. It's to reach our youth. Again, from the age of 5, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I was beaten just for waking up in the morning. I wasn't loved. I was abused daily by my 3 uncles.
McSwain, who is an Emmy Award-winning documentarian, noted that her abuse over the years as a child should not be something that any child should experience.
One of the reasons why I took 3 flights here is because I don't want anybody else to ever have to experience the brutal childhood that I experienced. I was made to sit outside in the cold in December, January, 20, 30 degrees with no clothes on, just because I peed in the bed. And I remember getting so cold. Me and my boy cousin, all we had was each other, sitting in those little red steps, so cold until I got pneumonia. I was in the hospital for months. Yet I was afraid to tell anybody what was happening to me. I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid. The silence, the shame, the fear. Those 3 uncles saying to me, I'm going to kill you. So I just wanted to say, during that time in my life, the only thing that I wanted to be was Wonder Woman.
Meantime, the life development coach said no one wants to talk about being abused, but it is important that they find a way to speak out about it.
I didn't talk about my abuse until I got in my 30s. I knew it always happened, you know, and I was one of those people who just blocked it out. But what happens is it doesn't go away. I would encourage anyone who's been any kind of victim in their life, whether you've been a child, whether you're an older person now, it doesn't matter who you are. Because one thing I know about abuse, it doesn't have any socioeconomic, it doesn't have any color, social barrier. I mean Hollywood. People coming from Hollywood, where's everything? So what I would like to say is write it down if you can. Down. Confirm it, write it down, start a diary, start some kind of club, get you a group of women or get out there. Find a way to admit this happened to you, because the first thing you got to do is to realize that it happened to you.
Tomorrow's symposium will begin at 9 a.m. The next activity will be on Thursday with the launch of the National Child Abuse Hotline, Vinci Voice, at the Lime Promenade from 10 a.m. The activities will wrap up with a march and a rally on Friday. "34-year-old Lamont Harry of Upper Lomans has been arrested and charged with the killing of Kelborn Pope on Saturday night in Lauders. Pope received a chop wound to the back of his neck and reportedly died on the spot. Both men were reportedly playing cards in a small shop in the Lauders community. The actual motive behind the attack is not known. Police say they are continuing their investigations into the matter. Harry was escorted to the Kingston Magistrates Court this morning and was not allowed to plead to the charge, which was laid indictably. He was remanded into custody until July 20th, 2014 and will reappear before the Serious Offences Court when a date will be set for a preliminary inquiry. Calling for quality teachers in the classroom, Deputy Director of the SVG Community College, Nigel Scott, is also calling for quality parents. Speaking at the 18th Biennial Convention of the SVG Teachers Union, Scott called on parents to be more involved in their children's education. He pointed out that one just needs to look at the poor turnout at Parent Teachers Association meetings.
What is the attendance like at our PTA meetings? How many parents do we know have virtually abandoned their children for greener pastures in North America, leaving that child or children with an auntie, an uncle, a grandmother, a grandfather, or worse yet, on their own? It is no wonder they don't come to school, because there's nobody at home to make sure they come.
Scott added that statistics have shown that children who have the support of both parents and positive figures grow up to be more well-rounded and more positive individuals.
Children who lived with both a mother and a father figure, not necessarily a father, but a father figure, had less behavioral problems than those who just lived with their mother. They found that children who were positively involved with father figures were less likely to smoke and get into trouble with the police. They achieved better levels of education and developed good friendships with children of both sexes. They were more rounded.
Additionally, Scott pointed out that later on in life, it has been proven that women who interacted with their fathers form better relationships with their spouses. He reiterated his call for fathers to step up and make their mark.
Women who had a good relationship with their fathers into their teenage years had better relationships with their partners and a greater sense of mental and physical well-being. Fathers in the house, raise your hand. Your children need you. When we examine the homes, what do we find? Brokenness, lawlessness, and absent or non-functioning parents.
In commemoration of Earth Day today, the General Employees Cooperative Credit Union planted the first of its 100 trees for 2014 at the National Public Library. The planting of the yellow pui tree donated by the Forestry Department is part of the activities by the credit union for its 50th anniversary celebration. Senior Marketing Officer of GECU, Danielle Francis, says everyone should play their part as environmental stewards to make SVG a healthier and greener place to live.
We know we all have a role as human beings to play as environmental stewards for our planet. You know, our planet is faced with lots of crises like overpopulation and drought in different regions and global warming, and we just want everyone to know that the onus is on us as human beings to preserve our environment and to make sure that it's here for not just today but for future generations.
Director of the Forestry Department, Fitzgerald Providence, says though the world has been recognizing Earth Day for the past 44 years, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has done so years before, since 1791 when it created the Kings Hill Forest Reserve.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we must recognize the importance of trees in our urban environment. And actually the theme for this year, Earth Day, is green cities. And it goes beyond trees, it goes all to green buildings, green energy, and how we preserve our environment. So on this day, we begin a challenge of planting 100 trees for the year, but this isn't along with other initiatives by other entities that we're going to be collaborating with over this year in terms of planting trees. And it's important that we have trees in our urban environment back because we're losing a lot of our green spaces.
Meanwhile, President of the General Employees Cooperative Credit Union, Clarence Harry, says he is pleased that his organization has taken the step to regreen the city.
At GECU are very proud to be a part of this exercise this morning. We're part of the green heritage. We have heard and known of what the irrigation has done to the environment, and we are proud to be part of this exercise as we look to regreening the environment. And to have this tree at the gateway of the Kingston Public Library is something that is honorable. When you see it, it reminds you of GECU. The goldenness of GECU, and we celebrated on the team, proud of the past, prepared for the future.